Who is the greatest World Cup underdog of them all? We are still fighting to find the answer. In World Cup history, there have only actually been 8 nations that have lifted the famous trophy, and they have all come from Europe or South America. Do you know who they are? Drop your answer in the comments below. This means a team from North America, Africa, Asia or Australasia has never triumphed, at least not in terms of winning the World Cup. But these continents have had a lot against them in the past, on and off the field, and not least the African nations. In South Africa in 2010, they lived the proud moment of finally hosting a World Cup finals. Surely one day they will win one. So up to now, who's come closest? Who is the true African underdog of World Cups? And perhaps, who one day can lift the trophy? Africa as a continent continues to fight an uphill battle. A recent article in the Daily Times says 34 of the 49 poorest countries of the world belong to this continent. More than 40% of its population lives on less than $1 a day, and recent estimations show that Africa is sinking deeper into the depths of poverty. Africa has problems that are bigger than football. It always has and perhaps always will. The continent is simply disadvantaged, and for African countries to fight on the world stage despite being a lot poorer or more underdeveloped multiplies their underdog status tenfold. Even if we look at the top level of African football, compared to other continents, they do not have the same resources, and this holds them back. With all of that in mind, it was truly beautiful to see Morocco arrive at the World Cup semi-finals in 2022. They are now objectively the most successful side in World Cup history from Africa. They are the only African side ever to make the last 4 of the competition. Morocco therefore take the crown of top African underdogs. Buoyed by fantastic players like Sofiane Amrabat and Achraf Hakimi, the North African side managed to win their group after a 0-0 draw with Croatia and victories over Belgium and Canada. They then went on to defeat Spain in the round of 16 and knock out Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal in the last 8, only falling short to the mighty France in the semis. 3 other African sides, however, have beaten the odds to leave their respective marks on World Cup finals history: Cameroon, Senegal and Ghana. The 3 original African underdogs all made historic journeys to the World Cup quarter-finals. Keep in mind that it wasn't until the 12th World Cup in 1982 that 2 African sides would be able to even qualify for the finals. At the last finals in Qatar, as has been customary, only 5 of the 32 final spots were reserved for African teams, despite the continent having more nations than any other. Morocco were the first team to successfully get out of the group stages in 1986, but it was Cameroon who would go one better to reach the quarter-finals at Italia 90. This side is remembered in the shape of Roger Milla, dancing with the corner flag. The legendary mover's goals pushed his nation to the last 8 of the FIFA World Cup. It all started with a truly historic victory against Argentina in the opening game at San Siro. Milla then bagged a double in the second group game against Romania, and with that, a defeat to the Soviet Union wouldn't matter. Cameroon were through. Milla would score another famous brace against a fancied Colombia side in the last 16. The game in Naples went to extra time and the Africans came out on top to become the first ever side from their continent to reach the last 8. In the quarterfinals, Cameroon nearly did it again, but they would eventually be defeated 3-2 by England in extra time. Cameroon were the surprise package of Italia 90. They brought goals, joy and colour to the tournament, and in the form of Roger Milla, a certain style and quality too. Milla came 4th in the Golden Ball rankings and made the bench in FIFA's team of the tournament. 1994 and 98 didn't bring quite such excitement for the continent of Africa, but that didn't matter come the very opening game of the 2002 World Cup in Korea and Japan, when Senegal famously defeated World Cup holders France 1-0 in Seoul. The likes of Zinedine Zidane and Thierry Henry could not believe it, and neither could the rest of the world. In fact, it was Senegal's first ever appearance at a World Cup finals, a result for the ages. Imagine rocking up to your first ever World Cup match against the current World Cup champions, opening the tournament under the lights, but without being given a 1% chance of winning the game, maybe even of drawing. Well, Senegal did it. They won. They beat the holders. They would draw their next 2 group games with Denmark and Uruguay to advance to the next round. There was no place for reigning champions France in the knockouts. Senegal's fate in the next two games would be both beautifully and cruelly affected by the old golden goal rule. Back in the good old days, extra time would be decided by a golden goal. The next goal wins. Ball hits the net and the referee blows the final whistle. Senegal would defeat Sweden with a golden goal in the 114th minute of their last 16 tie. Cue scenes of African joy. Sweden had a great side too and went 1-0 up, but the Senegalese turned it around and became only the second ever African team to reach the last 8 at the World Cup. Sadly, that's where the journey would end, and this time they would see the dark side of the golden goal rule, conceding to Turkey just 4 minutes into extra time. But Senegal went home with their heads held high. They went from unknown debutants to the top 8 in the world, and star forward El Hadji Diouf was voted in FIFA's team of the tournament. The other great African underdog took the world by storm in 2010 as the tournament finally came to African soil. Ghana made the quarterfinals of the South Africa World Cup, and they were probably unlucky not to go further. Also known as the Black Stars because of their flag, Ghana finally debuted at the World Cup 4 years prior at Germany 2006, winning 2 group games against the USA and Czech Republic to advance, but then falling short against the mighty Brazil in the last 16. Older and wiser, Ghana really made an impression in South Africa. Suleiman Tari and Kevin Prince Boateng were star names, but it was Asamoah Gyan, then playing for Rennes in France, that would be the star man for the African side. Ghana opened the group with a crucial 1-0 victory over a very strong Serbia side, packed with big names of their own, like Vidic, Kolarov, Ivanovic and captain Stankovic. Gyan's late winner put his name in lights and his country in a great position. A valuable point in the second game against Australia also came courtesy of an Asamoah Gyan goal, and despite a narrow defeat to Germany in the last game, Ghana would progress to face the USA in the last 16. Kevin Prince Boateng opened the winner, but the game finished 1-1 after 90 minutes. Who stepped up in extra time to grab the winning goal? It was Asamoah Gyan once again, making Ghana the third African side in history to reach the World Cup quarterfinals. Ghana were ranked 32nd in the world coming into this tournament and had reached the final 8. Ghana's infamous quarterfinal tie saw Luis Suarez play the protagonist. A knockout tie for the ages passed Ghana in agonising fashion, as they were literally inches from reaching the World Cup semi-finals, but instead narrowly missed out to Uruguay, and at the hands of Luis Suarez. Goals from Muntari and Forlan either side of half-time saw the game finish 1-1. It remained that way until the very last seconds of extra time, when Ghana thought they had won the game. As the ball flew towards the back of the Uruguay net, Luis Suarez stuck out an arm to keep the ball out. It was in, but it wasn't. Ghana would have to accept a red card for Suarez and the opportunity to score from the penalty spot. Step up, Asamoah Gyan. Their star striker of the tournament failed when they needed him most. Everyone in the world wanted the ball to hit the back of the net and set off wild celebrations in Africa, but it simply wasn't to be, and on this occasion, Gyan missed. Ghana missed their chance, and just minutes later, Uruguay were celebrating a penalty shootout victory. It was agony for all of Africa, but what a tournament from the Ghanaians. Of all the great African underdog teams that made the quarterfinals, they perhaps had the best side and certainly came closest to making the semis, obviously disregarding Morocco, who now stand alone. The faith in Africa is strong that one day a World Cup champion will come from the continent, against all of the odds. For now, Morocco's story is a miraculous one and will be celebrated. And in the form of Ghana, Cameroon and Senegal, Africa has had great runs in the past. Who is the most impressive underdog of them all? And who will carry the flag next for Africa? Can they win a World Cup one day? Will Africa become world champions? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.